Hi there, it's Nicole for Simon Says Stamp, and today I'm kind of revisiting some of my favorite stamps and dies from Simon Says Stamp with these watercolored scribble cards. The scribble flowers came out quite a while ago, and they're still one of my very favorite stamp sets. I love them. You can do more than just create flowers with them. I have used solid inks and used both the solid and outline images. You can create all kinds of different backgrounds. You can use the stems with the flowers like I'm doing here. You can use them without. There's just so many different things you can do with these stamps. I am going to be stamping the outline shapes of the flowers, the flower centers, the stems, and the leaves on Bristol Smooth cardstock using Versamark ink and sprinkling on white embossing powder. I am working on it a little at a time, stamping several images, adding the embossing powder so I can see where I've already been, stamping a few more, and I'm completely filling this sheet and another one. These are just little pieces actually of Bristol cardstock with these images. I stamped a couple more stems than I actually ended up needing and a few more leaves than I actually ended up needing, but I wanted to make sure I had plenty for the two cards I'm creating. I have really been on a kick lately of, while I'm creating one card, creating more than one, getting the most out of my time. And it's not really that much more work to stamp a few additional images, color them in, die cut them, and have them right there and ready, and just go ahead and put both cards together at once. I could have even done more if I wanted to. Once I have my images all stamped here on the cardstock, I did prep my background or the cardstock with a powder anti-cling tool to help keep the embossing powder only on the stamped images so it didn't migrate anywhere else. I'm going to heat set all of these images on both sheets, and then I'm going to go ahead and start watercoloring. You could definitely use the solid images if you wanted to. I am addicted to the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers on the Bristol Smooth cardstock, and you can even use maybe 2 shades of green and blend it out. I like to just lay down one color and blend it out with a water brush pen. It's even easier this way. The embossing creates a little well for the watercolor to sit in, and it makes it a lot easier that the watercolor doesn't kind of migrate outside of that stamped line. Now these stems are super thin. I don't think there's probably a really good way to color just the stem. So I didn't mind that I was slightly outside of it. In fact, I colored over it with my olive green Zig Clean Color Real Brush marker and then went over it with the water brush pen to smooth it just a little bit. They're pretty sloppy. They don't even look very good. Right after I did it, I wasn't so sure I was going to love it. What I ended up doing is I went ahead and left it, die cut it with the coordinating Scribble Flowers dies, and they actually didn't look half bad. So sometimes it was kind of a happy accident. I am coloring in the flower shapes now. Now this particular shape, I used yellow, you can see, and right away I realized that wasn't really the look I was going for. I was going for more peachy pinks, reds, peach colored flowers. I tend to gravitate more toward tone on tone or a rainbow design at times too. But I don't do real well when I mix and match colors like this all the time. And that yellow just wasn't working with what I had going here. So it kind of ignored that yellow. I ended up stamping another flower center for that and coloring it in. You'll see here in a little bit with the lightest peach color. I'm using only 3 colors of reds and pinks or peachy pinks for my flowers, for all the flowers and flower centers. Total, I am only using 4 Zig markers, which I think is really awesome because look at that great gradient of color you get, especially you can really see it in the large circle flowers. I colored around the edge and then blended it out with the water brush pen. go ahead and color in these last few images, doing the same thing for the 2 cards I'm creating here. And then once all these images are completely dry, I am going to use a little Post-it tape, hold the coordinating die in place over the images, and run them through my die cutting machine. This step did take just a tiny bit of time simply because I have so many leaves and stems. There's really only 2 of each flower and center shape, so I only had to run those through twice, but quite a few more leaves and stems. It's not too big of a deal. It kind of just sit down. Maybe you have an audiobook you like to listen to or a TV show you like to watch, and just roll those through. Next, I have a piece of black cardstock here. It's just a scrap, and I am taking a greeting from the Simon Says Stamp Choose Happy stamp set. It reads, "Happy looks good on you." I think this is a great sentiment that would work for lots of different occasions. This is a very happy kind of card, at least to me it is. I think the colors are bright and happy, and so the sentiment looks great, stamped on black cardstock and embossed with white embossing powder. The white really pops so nicely on this. Once I have heat set both of these greetings, I'm simply going to take them to my paper trimmer and trim them into thin strips. This is going to kind of overlay the whole little floral grouping that I'm going to do on my background. Next, I have die cut a couple of large A2 size rectangles using the Simon Says Stamp Basic Rectangles dies, plus I die cut 2 rectangles that are a little bit smaller from some Simon Says Stamp vellum. This background is the tiny alphabet background from Simon Says Stamp, and it is one of my most favorite and most used backgrounds. I love it. I love that the text goes at an angle. I love that it is text. There are tons of ways to use this, and I've used it in a lot of different ways. One of my favorites is stamping black ink on a white background for just a classic text background, almost like a pattern paper, but you're making it yourself. You can do it with whatever color you want to. With a cling stamp, if you're using it in your MISTI like I'm doing here, which makes it easy to make sure that I'm getting the entire background covered, you want to remove that foam insert, and that's going to allow you to use your MISTI with your cling stamps. If you're using just your clear stamps, you want to have that foam insert inside the MISTI. I'm going to do both of my backgrounds stamped there. So super easy. Go ahead and set that to the side. And here is what it's going to look like. I've got my stamped text background, a vellum rectangle, a greeting, and then a bunch of flowers that I'm going to create in a grouping here. I started by kind of laying it all out just to make sure it was going to work the way I thought. A group of 3 flowers in the center of that vellum square. The vellum slightly mutes that text background, which is one of my favorite things to do. I love a background that has some interest to it like this one does, but I definitely want my greeting strip and my flowers to take center stage. And while the vellum still allows you to see the background through it, it slightly mutes it just a little bit and really makes those flowers pop. I'm going to go ahead and start assembling and building the flower collage now, or the flower grouping, using a combination of a tape runner and also a glue pen, because those stems are pretty delicate. There's really not a better way to attach them than with some sort of a liquid adhesive. I try to usually keep my liquid adhesive to a minimum just because I am kind of messy with it, so I really try not to use it too much. The flower centers I'm popping up with some foam adhesive dots. The leaves I'm attaching with some glue dots. Those work great for smaller die cut images like this. You can see those stems here. I'm really glad that I colored outside the lines because it did allow for a lot more green to show through. Like I was talking at the beginning of the video when I was coloring those and I didn't think it looked very good, but when I die cut them, it looked much better. I do think it gives a lot more of that green feeling, especially since they are stamped and embossed, so there is quite a lot of white there, and you want to see a little touch of green. Once I have everything attached to the vellum panel, I'll hide some adhesive behind all of those solid pieces and attach it to my background, snip off the edges. And at this point, you can attach this to a white side or top fold card base rather, and it can be done. You don't have to do anything else, but I decided I wanted to add something like enamel dots, but I decided to create my own. I am addicted to the Nouveau crystal drops, and I am using those in Carnation Pink, Gray Mist, and Bottle Green. And I'm just creating my own little enamel dots in varying sizes throughout the design. These dry pretty quickly. I did give them probably an hour to make sure they were completely dry before I touched them, but I had done everything else on the cards. It wasn't really a big deal to just let them sit and completely air dry. What I love about the Nouveau crystal drops is that they smooth out on their own without a whole lot of extra help. Sometimes I'll tap the underside of my paper to help them smooth out a little bit. I didn't even do that here, and they smoothed out on their own with perfect results. I absolutely love them. I think they're fantastic and just a great way to add lots of different fun accents to your cards and paper crafting projects. I'm going to do the same thing for the other card, and once those are completely dry, these cards are going to be all finished. Thanks for joining me today for these Scribble Flower watercolored cards showcasing some of my favorite Simon Says stamps and die products. The supplies I've used to create these cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Here are a couple more videos that you might be interested in showcasing watercolor techniques. The first one is watercolor techniques with distress inks. The second is also with the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.